Hello and welcome back to First Time Fishkeeper. After discussing some of the basics, it's time to get things moving and set up the tank ready for the most frustrating part of the whole thing. It might seem odd that I'm focusing on that aspect, but it's true enough to say that nothing looks quite as empty as an empty fish tank. Still, it's a vital part of the process. We're using an Aquarium as our featured aquarium. It's a popular size and big enough to give you plenty of options as your hobby develops. Remember that although fish grow, tanks don't, and I guarantee that you'll run out of room before you run out of appealing options. You might not be starting with a brand new tank, in which case you may wish to look at your options for disinfecting any used equipment or removing limescale before you begin. If you do choose to opt for a second-hand tank, avoid any that come complete with fish. Neither you or your new pets would appreciate the stresses of a hurried house move. Glass tanks need to be placed on a cushioning layer to avoid stress cracks caused by uneven pressure. Bear in mind that water is very heavy. A litre of water weighs a kilogram, making most people equal to a modestly sized aquarium. Starting at the bottom, your aquarium needs a substrate. For those aiming for an aquatic garden, special additives can be used for best results, and this is the only opportunity you'll have to add them. As we're keeping things simple, well-washed sand will do nicely, and any solid fertilisers can be added later in tablet form should it be necessary. A few rocks and some wood completes the hard furnishing. These can be tweaked as water is added. Don't fill the tank to the top at this stage. This leaves room to get your arms in there and add the plants without flooding the place. For a new tank, go with fast-growing hardy types and avoid delicate or decorative species such as variegated plants, which are best used for short-term impact or avoided entirely. For a more natural effect, plant larger numbers of fewer species and allow room for growth. You wouldn't expect to grow a rose in a bucket of sand, and aquarium plants are no different. Add a liquid fertiliser to give them the elements such as iron that are missing from aquarium water. From this point on, we'll have to operate the lights, and this should give the plants the conditions that they need to thrive. Healthy plants can help the running of your aquarium enormously, and the age-old philosophy of the balanced aquarium is as valid today as it's always been. Growing plants remove pollution and can add oxygen to your water. We're using tap water to fill our aquarium. Chances are your tap water will be much the same as your local aquatic store, and this will make life easier for both you and your fish. Test your water to see what your parameters are, and keep this in mind when choosing your fish. Some have strong preferences that might make them unsuitable. Your store should be able to advise you what to avoid or how to change things to suit your must-have species. Years of domestication have made this easier, and today's aquarium fish will happily live and breed in conditions very different to their wild ancestors. They may be hardy, but chlorine and other chemicals will damage your fish. Always add a water conditioner to any tap water before adding it to the aquarium. If you need to change things drastically, you might want to look at RO water. Purified through a process called reverse osmosis, RO has most of its mineral content stripped, making it perfect for customizing to suit whichever fish you're keeping. It also avoids the problem of nitrates and phosphates in your tap water that can fuel excessive algae growth. Remember that your aquarium needs some minerals to function properly. So if you use RO or have very soft tap water, you'll need to add some mineral buffers to make sure that your aquarium works properly. Once your aquarium is full, install the heater and set it to a temperature that suits the fishes you intend to keep. 25 degrees C will suit most species, and make sure the heater is placed in good water movement. As the heater is only raising the temperature by a few degrees, it won't be running most of the time, especially during the hot weather. As a thermostat automatically turns off the heater, Don't be tempted to unplug it at the wall. This can cause problems when the cold weather comes. The heart of any aquarium is the filtration, and there's a number of options here. Thanks to their reliability and near silent running, most modern aquarium filters use electric water pumps, and the components designed to be placed underwater are normally sealed in resin for extra safety. Filters can be either placed externally, pumping water through a sealed container, or internally, pumping water through a similar but far smaller container. The most important task of the filter is to ensure clean and healthy water by removing pollution caused by the fish. With few exceptions, this is carried out by bacteria that colonize the filter and thrive in the high flow conditions where oxygen levels are high and dissolved waste products are delivered to them. This state of maturity requires a population of bacteria that won't be present in a new system. This is why you can't add fish to a new tank until these bacteria become established. Until then, even clear water can be toxic to your pets, and this new tank syndrome is what causes the failure of most unsuccessful tanks. We'll be using a filter that harnesses technology to solve this age-old problem, and this Hydra unit converts ammonia and nitrite by a process that doesn't rely on bacterial action. Given how serious new tank syndrome is for the fishes subjected to it, we'll proceed carefully and do everything we possibly can to avoid it. If you're intending to carry out a fishless cycle by adding liquid ammonia and monitoring pollution levels, now's the time to start this lengthy process. We'll be using a starter bacterial colony to introduce bacteria that should hopefully take off once there's a food source for them. We'll look at the process of cycling in our next program. I hope you'll join us then.